name is Akilem and welcome back to another video of the Tech Savior. So guys, this is again another installment on the topic basics of the Flutter. I've been covering a lot of videos on these topics. So if you haven't watched the previous video, I will just suggest you to go back and watch those. Because this is kind of a continuation of those videos. And on all these videos I will be covering a lot of Flutter basics, a lot of Flutter basic widgets. I'll be dealing with all those, and today we are gonna see how we can install an floating icon button inside a Flutter application. So in order to do that, you have to call in a function with the same name, which is known as floating action button. uh, Call that function in, and it will leave us with an floating action button. As you can see, it is kind of at the top of the application. We don't really require a floating action button on the top of these area. We normally leave the action buttons down here, or the down here at the bottom right place. So if you want to leave your action button out there, you have to actually wrap this with another widget or an container. So if you are on VS Code, just press on that bulb and take the wrap with the widget and leave that widget as an container, and the child of the container will be this floating action button. So let it be there, and the container takes, if you know more about the container, and or if you don't know about containers, I will suggest you to go back my last video. On those I covered how to make this container and how to make this container clickable. So in order to leave the floating action button at the down below, we are gonna call a function known as alignment. Then alignment dot we have to leave the function we have to leave the action button out here, which is the bottom right. So we take the bottom right, and when we press the Ctrl S, it is left out there. So it is currently sitting nearly towards the navigation bar, and we don't really like it to be over there. So I'm gonna install another parameter also for the container, which is the margin, and it takes another function known as edge insert all. So I will be installing nearly an maybe a 10 in all direction. So yeah, it just is not touching the navigation bar at the moment. So that's how you can install a floating icon button and leave that icon button at the down below. And the next thing that you have to do is that if you want to have any kind of icons inside the action button, leave a comma out here. You have to give these parameters inside the floating action button function itself. So if you want any kind of icons inside the floating action button, we have to call in the child parameter inside the floating action button, and that child will be the icon. Then icons dot I will leave some kind of things. Yeah, so currently we can see a small accessibility icon has been appeared on the floating action button. Like that, you can give any kind of icon as a child of the floating action button. So if you look forward to here, there is a parameter inside the floating action button known as onPressed. So the onPressed says to the floating action button a function that what it should do when a user presses the action button. Now when I press this, it is left as null, so nothing happens. If I press continue on pressing this, nothing really happens because I have left the parameter onPressed as null. So let us make this to route towards another page. I have already created another page which just says an title like a success. So in order to do that, you have to first put the functions, then you have to open a curly bracket. Inside that curly bracket, you say what it should be done. So I am so I'll be leaving the same navigator push out here also. So the navigation dot push is used to push from an one page towards to another page inside the Flutter. It is missing a bracket, so I would leave that. So it's currently Done. And now if I sync back and press this icon, it just shows a page where it just says success. I haven't even given an scaffold for that page. That's why it is just completely blank and showing a black color. It's all right. And the another property normally everyone uses, you if you want to change the color of your floating action button, again you have to call another parameter inside the floating action button known as background color, then leave the calls the parameter like colors. I am leaving the amber 800 is my preference. So if I sync that, you can see the color of the floating action button has been changed. So these are kind of the very basics about the floating action button, how to create those, and how to change colors and leave an icon inside those. This is kind of my sixth installment on the topic basics of the Flutter. If you haven't watched the previous video, please go back and watch those videos. Also, if you have liked this video, please consider subscribing. I'm coming up with a ton of more content on the Flutter topics. uh, Thank you guys, thank you for watching. Please consider subscribing to the channel. Have a nice day.